Joy podcast. Happy Seek the Joy Tuesday. On the podcast today is Kimothy Joy, the wonderfully kind, inspiring, and talented woman behind the empowering and powerful images that have uplifted and inspired all of us over the last year. Kimothy brings to life strong women in her watercolor and ink portraits, and she creates illustrations made with joy to spark social change. Her passion is really in using art to support social change, and she's committed and passionate about spreading messages that empower, uplift, inspire, connect, and celebrate women and girls. I was so excited to connect with Kimothy and to invite her on as a guest on Seek the Joy podcast. I remember the first time that I saw her artwork. It was at the Women's March last year in downtown Los Angeles, and like so many of us, I was instantly drawn not only to her art and creativity, but to the strong messages of empowerment and strength that she shares. I left this conversation feeling so inspired by Kimothy, and I know you're going to be just as inspired as I am by her and her journey, developing her self-love muscles, building her identity, and stepping into her authentic self. Her story is incredibly vulnerable, courageous, inspiring, and uplifting, just like her artwork. You'll hear it on today's episode. Kimothy has fully embraced her voice and her truth and her creativity, and she's created her own path, and despite difficult circumstances, she's continued to embrace and chase and choose joy no matter what. As always, to learn more about today's episode, head over to the show notes section of the website, seekthejoypodcast.com/show-notes, and everything is right there, including where you can find Kimothy and her online shop, where, by the way, she donates a portion of the proceeds to organizations like Southern Poverty Law Center, ACLU, Emily's List, and Planned Parenthood. Also on her website, you can now pre-order her book, which is called That's What She Said, Wise Words from Influential Women, which is coming out in April. In today's episode, Kimothy shares so much of herself and her journey, and I'm so grateful that she came on the podcast and shared her voice and her truth with all of us. By the way, she created this awesome doodle for the title of today's episode, and I'm obsessed with it. I love it. It perfectly captures our conversation, and if you haven't seen it already, make sure to head over to my Instagram page to check it out. Thank you, Kimothy, for this awesome piece to go along with today's conversation. All right, guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and without further ado, here is my conversation with Kimothy. So should we jump into it? I figure we might as well get started. So do you want to maybe introduce yourself and who you are and what you do and all that good stuff?
Absolutely. Sure. I'm Kimothy, Kimothy Joy Picor. I go by Kimothy Joy online and with my artwork. I'm an artist. I'm a myriad of things. So it's kind of hard to categorize myself, but I'm like, okay, artist, you can start there. I think I'll always be a photographer. I had a photography studio for a while, did that. Also do communications consulting, mainly with nonprofits in the healthcare improvement realm. So I do a lot of different things. Primarily right now I'm focusing on artwork that uplifts and empowers and connects women and girls. That's really my passion and has been for the last probably 2 to 3 years. Oh, I'm pregnant. I'm to be a mom.
So exciting.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's huge.
I'm as I speak, I feel her kicking around, bumping around. So
it's like she hears
cool.
You're talking about her.
Yeah, she's
totally.
like, hey, I heard that. Tell them about me. Tell them about me. So it's cool having a little buddy right now. I'm like a mama kangaroo and taking her everywhere I go and all these conversations. So yes, I'm due April 12th with a girl. Her name's Luca Joy. And cannot wait to meet her. Let's see. Oh, I'm coming out with a book. I'm an author, and that comes out on April 3rd. So book and a baby all in 1 year, all in the springtime is just going to be an incredible year. So I'm just feeling like a lot of good stuff is happening, and I'm just soaking it all in.
April's going to be an exciting month.
Yeah.
There's so much good stuff on the horizon for you. And I'm so excited to talk to you for this podcast. And what I love so much about your work are the messages really of empowerment and self-love and using your voice and standing up for yourself. And I've just been wondering, is there a moment in time in your life or an event that really inspired you to want to portray those messages?
Yeah, I think there's been like a series of moments, and it's definitely been a culmination of life events that have led me to where I'm at today. I just sat down because I get asked this all the time, like, what's your story? Like, why do you focus on this, like, women and girls empowerment? Why are they your focus and your passion? And it's taken me a little bit of time to come up with a more clear answer, just because, it's hard to just describe your life or paraphrase it when there's so many intersecting layers of your identity and events that informed where you are today. But I sat down last night and I wrote out a blog post, and I was just thinking about it, just like really like why, what's the intention? Why am I here? Why do I do what I do and paint what I paint? I could be doing anything else or painting about different things. But really, I feel like it was my lack of feeling like I had an identity early on or really understood my place as a girl or a woman, and just feeling like a general lack of confidence and knowing who I am in my earlier years, in my really formative years, childhood, and even up until my late 20s. I feel like, I'm 33, and I feel like I'm just now understanding, getting to know my true self. And it's just taken me so long. And I know for others it might be even longer, or maybe people have these realizations in their youth or in their 20s. But for me, I'm like, it breaks my heart to think about other women and girls not really recognizing their true selves or their power until later, missing out on that. So now that I found it for myself, and I feel like I'm just now coming into my own skin and getting really comfortable, I mean, I'm passionate about sharing that and encouraging others to do the same, and everyone around me. So that is it in a nutshell.
Yeah. What's so cool about having a social media platform for anyone, its ability to connect us. And when we use our voice and what we're putting out into the world to really inspire and empower ourselves, it has this sort of domino effect, I think. And you sharing what the journey has been like for you to sort of come into your own skin and gain that confidence, I think it has a ripple effect, because I think we start to show others, hey, you can do this too. And it doesn't matter, your age or where you're at in life.
Yeah.
You can get to this space too. And that's what I really love so much about the emphasis that you've been putting on sharing these messages of women and girls, and powerful women and empowered women, and just the possibilities really for all of us.
Yeah, you're so right. It is like this contagious, like magnified ripple effect,
Yeah.
And I definitely look to other women around me and my friends, other women of history, current leaders for inspiration and encouragement, because it's definitely like a daily work in progress. I'm a constant evolving being,
Aren't
as we
we
all
all,
are.
right?
So
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm always like looking to other women. I'm like, oh my gosh, she did this, and she did this in like her 40s or 50s. Like, it's never too late. It's never too early. Can't put like a time frame on those type of achievements. So it's just liberating to look around and be like, look what she's doing. And a lot of my work too is like definitely elevating and highlighting what other women are doing, because it's contagious for us all to see those examples.
Oh, absolutely. And I love highlighting other women's work too, because I think to move forward, we need to uplift each other and everyone,
Oh, yeah.
along the way. And that means, if you see someone who's inspiring you, you sort of link arms with them and you move forward together. And has there always been that emphasis on that for you in your life? And it sounds like you really have a strong community of women who you rely on and turn to. And so have you always had that?
No. It's definitely been a journey, and I feel like I've done a 180 with that, with my relationships with other women. I think as my relationship with myself transformed and I began to get to know my own self and love myself and have more grace and patience and be more forgiving and listen to that inner voice and kind of quiet the other voices that were so dominant in my youth, the more I did that, the better and deeper my connections with other women became. And now I just had my mother's blessing, baby shower
Hmm.
gathering last Saturday, and it was like one of the most moving, beautiful experiences I've ever had in my life. It was just all of these women in my life, friends, my aunts, my mom's sisters, like cousins who traveled from afar, sister-in-laws, all in one room, all in one space, and the whole focus was just on going around the room and sharing and acknowledging each other and talking about what it meant to be a woman and motherhood. And it was so affirming and so beautiful. But like having this support system and, being a part of this group right now I've just come such a long way. Like I definitely didn't have that in my youth. I was just kind of, weary and, mistrusting of other women. I was more competitive. I don't know if it was just the way, I think it was just a lot of influence from family and society and conditioning and just having this view that there are limited seats at the top and I'm always in
Hmm.
competition. I can't trust other women. They're going to try to tear me down. I had that type of mentality, and I know a lot of us are raised that way. But I've definitely had an evolution where I'm like, oh my gosh, these are my sisters. They want the same thing. I can be vulnerable with them. I can open up with them. And the rewards of that, these connections and relationships I've formed have like changed my life. And I'm just so grateful. So
Hmm.
Saturday was just like an event that truly captured, these deeper relationships that I formed with women and this community. And I was able to just sit back and be like, whoa, I've come so far and this is amazing. And I wish this for every woman, and
Yeah.
every girl to have this type of community because you can just go so far when you feel that love and support and energy around you. And you're able to give that, reciprocate that with other women too.
Yeah, once you get to that space, within yourself of that self love and compassion and confidence and an understanding of who you are, it totally transforms the relationships that you have with others. And it sounds like that's really what's happened for you. And it's
Mhm.
amazing when you get so many women and so many people in the same room who sort of embody that love and empowerment and that
Uh-huh.
confidence and they're sharing it. I mean, it had to have been such an incredibly powerful moment, especially because you're about to have a daughter. And that's got to be a whole transformative experience too.
Yeah, and just, right away, just knowing that they're all there for me and also acknowledging, we went around the room and just acknowledged that, I'm gonna mess up. We all do. And it's just being vulnerable with each other, created such a safe space. Like, hey, we're all just figuring it out together and no judgment and we're here to help and we can talk about these things even before she arrives and you're not gonna do it perfectly and it's okay. We're all in this together. It was just beautiful to hear that.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Mhm,
I've said this
mhm.
before on the podcast, but I really believe that we're moving closer to a space where vulnerability is more embraced and accepted and
Mhm.
celebrated. For you in your life, was there a moment or something where you decided, okay, I'm going to be more vulnerable with myself and with others and really start to live, I guess, maybe a more authentic life and kind of
Mm,
listen to yourself and your intuition more?
absolutely. There was a big moment where I can definitely pinpoint it as being the death of my mother from breast cancer when I was 25. That was in 2009. She was 55. But that was like for sure a pivotal turning point in my life where I could just look back and see how inauthentic I had been and mainly, trying to be the woman and girl that my parents told me to be, society told me to be, my brothers, teachers, professors, everybody. I was just so influenced by everyone else. But definitely the passing of my mother was a reckoning for me where first of all, I realized through her death, it was kind of the greatest example. It was the greatest example of someone dealing with some really challenging, terrible circumstances going through
Mm.
breast cancer and watching someone, deteriorate from any type of cancer is just like, it's a horrible thing that I wouldn't wish on anyone. But witnessing her strength and the way she was dealing with all of that was life changing for me because she just had so much strength and she put the sign all over the house. She printed it out it said share or find joy in life, share joy with others.
Mm.
And that really stuck with me. I just remember, when she was going through chemo, radiation, she was just like in her bed, really sick every day. And I was at her house, walking back and forth, passing the fridge, and that was on there. And at the time, I was kind of like, oh my God, like, how can I find joy in this situation? But she had that posted everywhere. And looking back, I'm like, oh my God, that it takes so much courage and strength. And it's definitely an abiding principle that I live by now. But at the time, I was like, what? How can you find joy and when your body is deteriorating and turning on you? Like, I just couldn't understand. But after that, and that her example of being strong in that situation, it definitely changed me. And the loss of your mother, you're like that's your main role
Yeah.
model and the person that like affirms you and celebrates you and is your guide as a woman. It's a very special relationship. So when she passed, I was just kind of flailing and wondering, and I felt even more disconnected from myself. So it definitely sent me on first a downward spiral. I did a lot of destructive things, I was depressed, and I moved across the country, I got married, there's all these things that happened. I got divorced like a year and a half later, but it just caused me to reevaluate everything, how I was living, if I was living for my own happiness or for the approval of others. And I realized a lot of the things I had done since then had been because other people had told me I should be doing it, or there were choices that were definitely influenced by other people, and it wasn't me just doing like a real gut check and asking myself, well, what do you want to do? What makes you happy? What brings you joy? So I think it just made me realize that you really have to work hard and almost fight for your own joy and happiness. It doesn't come to you easily. It's something that you really have to claim and hold on to and keep working at. And it's also just so important. Yeah, that was definitely a turning point for me that, I mean, since then, I've just made so many different changes and I feel like I'm a completely different person from who I was as a 27-year-old.
To lose your mom, I think at 25, I could not imagine. And so I can only imagine how it has really been such a monumental event in your life, pushed you to really start to evaluate where you're at in your life and the decisions that you were making. And now kind of going through that transition and that metamorphosis since your mom passed away and the huge changes you made with relationships and friends. What do you do now to really bring yourself joy and kind of build up those self-love muscles and treat yourself with that
I
kindness?
love that you said self-love muscles. That's so great.
I
That's
love
how I feel
saying
about
that because it really is
Yeah.
a muscle and you have to work at it. I didn't grow up in a home where it was encouraged to love myself. And I think so many people relate to that because it just wasn't something we thought about. And I really think
Mhm.
now in our 20s and in our 30s, and I really actually think for women of all ages, and men, it's really important to start to build up those muscles and
Mhm.
acknowledge how wonderful and beautiful and kind and intelligent you are and not let anyone really, tell you otherwise.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my nieces and my daughter and like all these like girls and yeah, so boys and women and men. It applies to everybody. But yeah, wouldn't it be amazing if we were all taught
Ugh,
self-care, encouraged to get to know ourselves and know what, brings us joy or what heals us or
it would
sustains
be a
us at an early
total
age?
game
No.
changer.
The world, I know, right? It would change the world. And I just think of the lack of that I had, the lack of self-understanding and awareness up until my late 20s, and I had no idea how to care for myself. I just like seriously just drank more and just hopped from one relationship to the next after my divorce and was like, I don't know how to even cope. I don't know how to cope with death. I had just like no like zero handrails that were like healthy. And
Hmm.
so I had to kind of, yeah, reevaluate and look for those all over. I had to start from scratch and think about, okay, what makes me happy? Okay, so when you talk about developing your self-love muscle, which I just doodled, this is so great. I'm like, I need to remember that. Um,
It's so good, right? I mean, I just think it's so applicable for
yeah,
everybody.
because it's like it's definitely something that you hone in on over time and strengthen. But for me, I found, let's see, just making space to be alone and not trying to like, because I think like after you lose someone or you have a divorce or some pivotal moment like that or traumatic moment in your life, you tend to want to, well, at least I did, I would just like schedule my calendar out, fully book myself, want to be around people all the time, like just constantly stay busy so that I didn't have to face it, what was going on. I didn't have to face the grief full on. I didn't have to sit with myself in the pain and um, just really be in it and process it. I wanted to do the opposite of that. So I would distract myself with everything like travel, people, drinking, going out partying, whatever. Work just became so busy. But then I realized, I wasn't facing it. It just seemed like a destructive downward spiral. So as soon as I started making space and time just to be alone and get to know myself and just being comfortable with that uncomfortableness, that's when things started really changing. I started traveling alone. After a while, I decided I wasn't going to date for like a year or whatever, like not seriously at least, and just spent more time actively, spending nights at home alone or just with friends. And I started journaling more. And that's how I started doing all the watercolor artwork. And that was only like, let's see, maybe 4 years ago now. It actually started after a pretty messy breakup. And I was like, I'm writing dating off for a year. I just need to, I'm not doing this right. Something isn't right here. And I also felt just like so depressed and disconnected from myself. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm older and I'm still not getting this right. And I still feel like lost inside myself, if that makes any sense. And I turned to painting and just journaling to get to know myself and discover myself. And it was so healing and cathartic. And that really was, the point in my life that has led me to today where I'm like on this watercolor kick and I'm doing all this artwork. It was from that painful time, that painful breakup where I just every day painted just for fun, just for my enjoyment, just to like find some peace.
Yeah. I love that because I was going to ask you, where did it start with the watercolor and the painting and doing what you're doing. And I love that it really started from giving yourself the space to have space and be alone and learn to get more in touch with yourself. And something that I'm learning and I have learned is that you really need to be open to being uncomfortable and you need to be open to the possibility of taking an uncomfortable risk and doing things that scare you, because once you start to shift outside of that comfort zone or shift outside of the space that you've been and what you're used to and what you're comfortable with, I don't know, I think you really start to see some magic and who you are starts to develop and you start to learn about who you are. I think there's so much stimulation in the world, period, and I think we can get lost in it and of who we are and our identity and not know, is this my truth or is this someone else's? And so I love what you said about how you made the space to kind of be alone and to learn more about who you are and what you like to do and what you like to do for fun and what kind of fills you up that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't get quiet, you don't make space to get quiet enough to hear yourself. Like, you just don't know how you would know.
Yeah, no, it's so true. You have to disconnect,
Right.
unplug so you can start to connect to who you really are and what's important to you. And what would you say you've learned the most about yourself kind of going through this journey? Maybe it sounds like the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I would say I learned the most about myself. I'm stronger than I ever realized. I can endure so much more than I thought, which has built my confidence over time. I'm like, whoa, you went through some crazy shit. You can handle it.
Seriously.
Wow. And then,
Yeah.
I'm like, women, people are really resilient, powerful. They can do a lot of things. Like if you just have that faith that you'll get through it, even when you're like at rock bottom, just hang on. And then the other thing is, I always I was always a pretty sensitive kid, sensitive person, and, not quick to speak up. I kind of sit back and let things process before I have an answer. Even in meetings, I worked in the corporate world for a while. I would just sit back and let it all process and I'd want to make sure I had enough information and then speak my mind. And I always thought that was a weakness, just being a little more soft spoken, introverted, sensitive. But now I really recognize that that's one of my greatest strengths. It definitely, I think that empathetic side of me that kind of just has like a hypersensitive radar on at all times. And when I walk into any room, I'm like, are they comfortable? What are they doing? Oh, they seem a little like, do they feel like they're not being heard or seen? Oh, there goes my dog. That's Charlie.
He
He's
agrees.
insane.
He
He's
agrees with
like,
everything you're saying right now.
ditto, girl. You get it, girl. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's that same part of me that has that hypersensitive radar on when I'm like at a party or hosting or I'm just trying to get a feel of the room and I can kind of sense when people are maybe uncomfortable or maybe they're like lonely. I just always have been that way.
Yeah.
Or I cry at the drop of a hat or I don't know, I just take it all in. So I think that I've learned over the years that that's definitely my strong suit and it informs my artwork. It definitely gives me a perspective of inclusivity, like who might not be feeling heard or seen right now, like what people are out there, like what's missing from this, where we're not seeing it in artwork or in media, like whose voices are not being
Yeah.
heard. And then I put that into art. For a while, yeah, I did think of it as a weakness. I'm like, I need to be more aggressive and masculine in these meetings. I need to speak up more. I need to defend myself. And that's important too. But I just thought it looked a different way. And, you know, when you think about leadership and leaders, we have this stereotype of what it means. And I never thought of myself as that until recently. I'm like, no, I can be myself and still be a leader. And it doesn't have to look a certain way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it goes back to the fact that the images that we have grown accustomed to of leaders are those very aggressive, masculine figures. And we're sort of been taught that, to be passive is considered to be, I don't know, I feel like people characterize it as a weak feminine trait as opposed to being
Hmm.
aggressive as being dominant and masculine and strong. And the truth of the matter is, and I think we're learning this now and being quiet and taking it all in and being strong in that sense and empathetic and being sensitive and in tune to what others' needs are and who doesn't feel represented and who actually is not being represented. That's really where the true leadership is. And I think we
Hmm.
are starting to see it rise to the surface. And I love that you really started to understand that those traits that really make you who you are your strengths and they're not weaknesses. And you and I share that in common in terms of when we walk into a room. I mean, it's like a running joke in my family because I always say, "How are you? Are you okay? What's wrong? Your face looks weird." And my
Hmm.
dad hates this and he always goes, "Stop picking up on my energy. Worry about your own energy." And so, it's like you can't help it. It just happens. And so
Hmm.
when you were saying that, I was cracking up inside because it's like, I get it, and you're sensitive that way. And it's actually a real strength. And it does really come through in all of your artwork and the women and the images that you portray. And so much of it is about that empowerment aspect. And I wanted to ask you this earlier, but what does empowerment really mean to you?
Hmm. I think empowerment means feeling comfortable and whole in your skin and knowing your power, your own power and your agency, really understanding that, when you're like walking into a room or any type of situation, knowing that you have equal power with the other person or the other groups of people, having that confidence, and also really having boundaries, and knowing yourself, what your boundaries are, how to self-care and preserve yourself. So you know when to say no, or you get used to saying no more. I think that's what empower means for me.
Yeah. And it goes back to that whole aspect about leadership and really understanding, your strengths and that they're not weaknesses and acknowledging, that you're really on the same playing field, that there aren't those differences. And so much of your work too is really about all of that. And especially now with everything we have going on socially and politically. And how has your work and your illustrations and everything that you've done has it made or how has it made a difference in your life?
It's really led me to recognize the power of creativity and how that can create so much connection, how it can support a movement or other people's efforts and dreams. And artwork is so powerful. And I just, yeah, with Instagram and the whole online community building and online reach and what's possible, it's been amazing to see what can become of it when you put yourself out there, when you share your artwork, share your voice through artwork. I just had no idea that it would take me to where I'm at now. When I started sharing online like a year and a half ago, I had no idea it would resonate with so many other people and other women, until I started just being open and sharing my stuff. I didn't even, like my hand lettering is just probably the same hand lettering and style, my artwork is the same style I've had in the margins of my notebooks from middle school. So
Hmm.
to have it like people buy it and like celebrate it and they give me great feedback, it's just been amazing because that is really an extension of who I really am and who I've always
Yeah.
been. And it's just me putting it out there consistently, and then it resonates with so many. It's been really beautiful, and I've had all these like forged all these great connections through sharing myself in that way. Also, it's been on my mind for like, well, since I completed college, what was that, like 10 years ago, my bachelor's. I've always
Hmm.
considered going to art therapy and becoming an art therapist. And it's been like this, it's been on my mind, yeah, for over a decade. And I just now applied finally. I'm like,
Oh
I need
my
to do
God.
this.
That's
Yeah,
exciting.
I know. I'm so excited. I applied to a couple schools like a month ago, and I'm like, okay, I'm having this kid, but that's okay because, like I said, it's contagious looking at other women who've done it with families, and I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, I can. Anything is possible. There's a way. I just don't know the how yet, but I'm like, it's possible.
Yeah.
She's doing it. She did it. So I'm like, I can figure this out. I have a great, really supportive partner, Gregory, too, who's just like, yeah, we can make it work. Like, we'll figure it out. But in recognizing the power of artwork to lend to positive social change and to create community and healing and connection, I'm like, man, there's so much untapped potential in creative therapies that just I want to master. I want to know more because I want to be able to do more with it. So that's the next chapter that I'll be
That's
pursuing
so
with all this
cool.
artwork.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
thank you.
That's so exciting, and I love that you're thinking about what else you want to do and what is so cool and what you said, about not knowing the how. I think so many of us get sort of hung up on the how, like how is this going to
Yeah,
work? How is this
totally.
going to happen? I have all these other things on my plate. How am I going to do this one other thing? And
Uh-huh.
it sort of sounds like in a way, you're really stepping out in faith and going for it and figuring, you know what, it's going to work out whatever way it works out, but I'm going to go for it. And I love
Hmm.
that because I think so many of us let those things hold us back and we choose to play it small and not go for
Hmm.
it, not think, that we can handle so much more than we actually can. So that is really I'm really excited to see, how all that plays out for you and I just love that you're going for it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm like, well, I have a great supportive community and partner, and I'll figure it out. I'll
You
just ask for
will.
help along the way. I've learned to do that too.
You will.
Go
And
feeling.
asking for help is hard, I think, for so
Yeah,
many of us. And
totally.
especially when we want to kind of give off this illusion, that we've got it all together and everything is
Yeah.
fine and I don't need help. And for you, I mean, asking others for help and support. And I know we touched a little bit on your community and the support system you have, but have you found that it's gotten easier over time to ask for that help?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. And I think the more that well, it's that whole vulnerability piece too, like,
Yeah.
and creating a group. I have this like a group meetup that I co-founded with some friends, and it's called For Folk's Sake. It's awesome.
Mm,
We meet up like once a month. We started doing it like post-election because we're like, how are we going to get through this? And
yeah.
how can we stay engaged and not completely drain ourselves? And like we want to stay active in the community and politics, and we want to self-advocate and advocate for each other and build each other up. So we're like, we need like a structure around this. So we started this group. Yeah, last January actually. It's a year old. And we meet once a month, and in creating like safe spaces for women to and folks to show up and just be who they really are and just share their struggles and not have to put on like a facade of like, I've got it all figured out. Are you impressed? Because that
Yeah.
keeps us disconnected from each other. But just showing up and being like, hey, I'm starting this business, or I have this business idea, or like, hey, this is happening, having these relationship issues or whatever it may be, but being real and just knowing that other people are going to listen and not judge and provide support. It's so powerful. And then you get used to, putting it out there. It is back to that muscle thing.
Yeah.
I think it all ties into that self-love muscle. Like, hey, this is where I'm at. Can anybody help me with this? And I've definitely gotten better at that over time. Like, I don't need to hide who I really am or how I'm struggling. I need to share it because everyone's struggling in their own way too.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get accustomed just putting it out there. And then I can reciprocate that when someone else, they become comfortable with me and sharing what's going on, what's really going on, you know?
Yeah.
Like my coffee dates, like my relationships have completely changed. My coffee meetups the conversations are so uplifting and powerful because people feel comfortable just sharing what's really going on. And when I ask, how are you doing? Like, I really mean it. I would just like want to go there.
Yeah.
I think that also happened after my mom died. I was so frustrated that people didn't want to ask me about it. Like, it never happened. They were uncomfortable, so they didn't bring it up. And I just wanted to keep her memory alive and keep talking about it and processing through the grief. And I just felt so alone in it. Like, no one was wanted to bring it up because it was too uncomfortable. So I would bring
Yeah.
it up, and then they would react in a really awkward way. And that made me realize that we deal with like grief in such an awkward way in our society and especially in this country. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what is going on with that? How can we heal? How can we process it when no one even wants to bring it up? As with so
Yeah.
many other issues that are uncomfortable for people. But that's when I was like, man, I just want to have real conversations about real stuff all the time. So how can I practice doing more of that with everybody around me? And so I did. Yeah.
That reminds me a lot about Sheryl Sandberg. And I don't know if you've read any of her books, but she talks about how after her husband passed away, no one wanted to talk about it. No one wanted to talk about the fact that he died. No one wanted to say anything to her. And she felt
Hmm.
so isolated in her grief. And it's about teaching ourselves and our friends and our family, and by extension, our society and culture, that no, we have to talk about it and it's okay to ask. And it's
Mm,
to me, it feels like it's more uncomfortable for the person who's asking than it is for the person who's actually going through the difficult
definitely.
experience. And
Yeah.
the more we sort of practice moving out of that uncomfortableness within ourselves,
Hmm.
then you start to see the conversations and the relationships and the interactions that you have with others make that shift because you've made it, within yourself. And
Yeah.
having those conversations with friends and family and with new friends and asking people, how are you? I think how are you has become kind of
Yes.
this like
Hmm.
small talk filler, but it's
Hmm.
not. I mean, it's I
Yeah.
really want to know how you are.
Yeah, and you're so right. The how are you? I mean, even people, when you ask them that, they're probably like, they don't really want to hear how I'm doing or what's really
Oh
going on.
yeah.
I'm on the verge of divorce or I'm having a breakdown. Like they don't feel comfortable typically because it is, like you said, it's just such a common um
Kind of
kind
like
of
filler
meaningless
question. Yeah.
filler question, yeah, that we use. But I was just thinking, one of my good friends, she lost her father when she was younger, and we both realized that we had, deceased parents. And when we shared like the same sentiments on people are just so awkward around grief and
Mm-hmm.
bringing it up, and we're like, we need to change it. We're gonna change it together because we're like, let's talk about them. So, when you have a friend like that too, you want to know where they came from and who their parents were to really understand who they are.
Yeah.
So we decided to set a date and have coffee and talk about our dead parents.
Hmm.
And we called it the Dead Parent Society. We're like, we need to do this all the time. But we're like, disclaimer, like they're dead from natural causes. Like, don't kill your parents. But we were like, we put it in our calendar, coffee and tears and dead parents. And we both brought photo albums, and she brought her dad's artwork. He was an amazing artist. And she brought all these little like mementos or tokens of, his life with her. And so did I. All these old photos of who my mom was. And it was like one of the most beautiful days I've ever had, just getting together and like sharing my parent with her and her sharing who her dad was. It was so cathartic and healing. And I was like, man, everyone should do this. This is great. We could just keep their memory alive and get to
Yeah.
know each other better in doing so.
Yeah, opening up that space, I think, for ourselves and others to kind of feel comfortable. And I can only think about my own experiences with this, but I think sometimes you feel like you're not being heard because people don't want to talk about it or they don't know how to
Hmm.
approach you. And so to make that space for yourself and for a friend, I think Ah, it's so beautiful and has to be so powerful. And of course, it was such an amazing day for you, because you had that space to really share. And
Yeah.
that's really wonderful. And how amazing that you really cultivated and developed these deep relationships with women and everyone in your life. I mean, I think it's a real testament too to the growth and how far you've come in sort of your own development, in
Mm.
getting comfortable within your own skin.
Yeah. Thank you.
If you could go back in time, what would be one thing that you would sort of share with your uh gosh, maybe 23-year-old self?
So that's a good question. I would probably encourage my 23-year-old self to play more
Hmm.
and to just make time and space to discover myself, discover who I am. I feel like I just was so rushed into being an adult. I think I just was like trying to be a perfectionist and have it all figured out. And I was so adamant about doing things the right way, whatever that looked like,
Yeah.
whatever everyone else told me was the right thing to do, versus just like dabbling in different things, which I feel like I've done that later in life, with different businesses and stuff. But it took me a while. I just wanted a plan. I wanted to have it all figured out. I just wanted to have like a legitimate career and have respect and success and prove myself. I think that's how I derived a lot of my value. I was like, okay, I need to be
Hmm.
successful, and it looks like this, X, Y, Z, and that's what I was focused on versus like thinking about what really made me happy and all those things. I'm like, no, no, no. I need to make money. I need to get a real job. I need to have success. Yeah, I was really focused on that. So I wish I would have just made time to get a little messier,
Hmm.
allow myself to fail. I was really afraid of failing. So doing things wrong. Yeah, and just listening to everybody else instead of listening to myself. I did so much of that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I relate to so much to all of that. And I know so many people who are listening will feel the same way. And I think, especially when you're in your 20s, and this is sort of obviously where I'm at right now, but you
Hmm.
feel rushed. You want to have that legitimate career and have that sort
Hmm.
of external respect. And I'm learning it's more about that inward self respect. And
Yeah.
that's really where you derive your happiness and your joy. And yes, of course, making money is important considering the
Right.
society we live in, but
It
that
is. Yeah.
doesn't, right? You can do things that bring you joy and make you happy and fulfill you that
Hmm.
way to sort of bring in, that livelihood and that income and whatever that might look like. And I love your advice about playing more, and it sounds like that goes kind of hand in hand obviously with having more joy and doing things that make you feel that joy. And I think at 23, I think we're all pretty serious. At least I was very
Hmm.
serious. I was starting law school
Yeah.
at 23, so I was
Oh, you
a
gotta be
very
serious.
serious person.
Yeah.
But today and where you're at in life now, how do you sort of find joy in your day-to-day life?
First things that come to mind, still painting. I still find so much joy in just sitting down, lighting a candle. I like create like a little ritual around it where it's like my me time to just express myself. I love that. Who says this? Oh, Brene Brown said that creativity is not benign. It kind of
Hmm.
builds up in you and
Yeah.
it'll be destructive after a while if you don't get it out. And that's what I was doing for so long, just, denying myself of that. I'm like, well, it's not productive and that's self-indulgent. Like I can't just sit down and paint every day. Like I don't have time for that. I need to go out and hustle. Like I had this, like, just, I'm so afraid. I gotta make money. And the funny thing is, as soon as I started letting go of that, I'm like, what brings me joy? What do I have to say? I'm gonna do my own thing. I've made more money in doing that. Like
Oh,
that has been the
yes.
outcome when I flipped it. But obviously, I'm a big advocate of making money and asking for what you're worth, like
Of
totally.
course,
But
yeah.
I flipped my mindset where I'm like, what do I enjoy? And I started putting that out in the world and doing more of that and then getting more commission work for that. And it just started snowballing. So it's been
Oh,
cool to see
yeah.
it, see that flip, when
Yeah.
my passion aligned with my career, I guess, and how that was rewarded in a way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, sitting down to paint brings me a lot of joy. I was never a dog person until I went to an adoption day with Greg and I went like, well, it was 2 years ago now. And we're like, let's just go check it out and see if there are any cute puppies. And it's like, whatever. And then we saw Charlie, and he's this like 3-month-old German Shepherd mutt, and he was just so cute and so happy, like wagging his tail. Every other dog was freaking out, losing its mind. And we're like, oh my gosh. And then I like held him. I was like, I feel like he chose me. I need to bring him
Mm,
home.
yeah.
And so since then, he's going to be 2 in April. Like, I just love how he keeps me so present and in check. And he's just like living in the moment every day. And I'm like, I get this dog thing, this animal thing. This is like, they're just around, they're goofy, they like are just being themselves completely unabashedly every day. And
Oh,
they
I
make
love
me
it.
laugh, everything he does. And I try to make time when he brings a toy over and like wants to just like play and mess around. I'm like, okay, just take a couple seconds, like just play with him. It's good for you too. It's not just to appease him. Like you need to be present and just snap out of whatever you were thinking about. So I do that a lot. I like just walking him and getting outside, just having that down time, that quiet time for myself. That's not online, not looking at screens, whether it be 30 minutes to an hour, even just breaks throughout the day to yeah go for a walk without my phone or just meet up, have coffee and not have my phone anywhere in sight with a friend and just like fully listen and talk and engage and be like completely present with them for like an hour. That is so energizing and wonderful. Like I try to do that every day, start coffee or every other day before I start my day with like a friend and just listen and hear each other out. And then what else? Taking
Hmm.
baths, just any downtime, quiet time. I love it. And travel.
Yeah.
Travel brings me joy, seeing how other people around the world live. I didn't start traveling, especially internationally. We just didn't have the means growing up to do that. And it wasn't on my mind when I was in my early 20s. I was like, I don't have money or time for that. I need to get a job.
Yeah.
I didn't start doing that to my late 20s. I took my first international trip when I was like 27, 28. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm missing all of this. Like I was living in this bubble world. I didn't know that they do things like this in Hong Kong. They drink hot water from these hot water stations all the time. Why do they do that? Like they practice like Tai Chi in the early mornings in their parks throughout the city. Like the elderly do that a lot. And all these little things that I absorbed and that just opened my eyes to how people live and their belief systems. And it just broke me out of my shell and made me sparked my creativity.
Hmm.
It's just a constant thing. So I was like, since that trip, I made an effort to save money and take an international trip every year because I was like, this is a priority. This informs my self growth and personal development. It's like an investment. So
Oh, it
that's been
totally is.
so yeah, it's brought me so much joy.
Oh, I love that. I love everything that you do to bring joy into your life. What would you say that joy feels like for you?
I think it's peaceful. It's probably the biggest word. Present, just being peaceful, present, accepting of where I'm at. I don't have to change anything, as perfect as it is, even when it's like things are chaotic or crazy. Just
Yeah.
being able to sit in that and be like, no, it is as it is. You'll be okay. Like tapping into that
Hmm.
inner reserve of strength and like, okay, you got through so much other things. You can get through this and you can still have joy and be joyful, and no one can take that away from you. You can choose joy at any moment, no matter what's
Yeah.
happening.
I agree. I really think even when moments are difficult, there's really always something to celebrate and be joyful over and feel gratitude for. And I think it's about learning, to come back to that space within yourself too, when those moments arise.
Yeah, and I think the number one example of that for me was my mom. Like that find joy in life, share joy with others as she was dying. Like that is the supreme example I have of that. And
Yeah.
one of the last words she said to me when she was at hospice was, go have fun, Kimmy. I had a wedding of a really good friend the next day, and I was like, she was expected to live weeks beyond that, and she actually passed away the next day.
Hmm.
But her last words were like, go have fun. Like, as a mom, she's just like, you need to go live, go to that
Yeah.
wedding. I'll be here. Like, it'll be fine. You can still dance. You can be happy no
Hmm.
matter what's going on. Like, go do it.
Yeah. I love that. It's really beautiful what your mom said to you and pushing you, to really go and seek that joy and have it and keep it in your life and to carry it with you, I think always.
Hmm.
What are you most excited for this year? I mean, It's probably an easy question given the birth of your daughter and your book, but I thought I would ask anyway.
No. Yeah, I'm just so excited to meet my daughter and to just experience motherhood. Um, yeah, it's gonna be incredible. I've no idea. I'm not trying to put too many expectations on it. I'm just gonna like let it unfold and get myself as ready as I can be. And try not to control the situation too much or dictate it because you never really can anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think that's you have no idea what's gonna happen, and
I know, I hear there's not a manual for parenting.
and even if
People
you
are
get
like,
one, it changes constantly, is from what I've been
I know.
told. So, oh
I
my
know.
gosh.
So I'm not reading any like what to expect when you're excited. I'm like throwing it out the window. I'm just gonna lean on my community and phone a friend and family whenever I'm like, what do I do now? How do I keep this child alive?
Oh, I love it. So, my last question before we go is just what is your biggest dream?
I'm really hopeful and optimistic about the future of our country, even though it seems like, a shitstorm right now, which it is. But I am hopeful that this is the chaos before the great transformation. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people are waking up. Some can say like they're waking up too late or whatever. It's still it's happening. A lot of people, there's an unveiling that's happening. Um, and I'm excited to see more women stepping up into leadership roles, whether that be government, politics, throughout business, whatever that looks like on every level within their homes. I'm excited to see what that looks like, that transformation, and it's already happening. I think it's an exciting time to be alive. And then personally, yeah, just being a mother and like, raising a daughter who's kind and understands her own power and just discovering who she is. That's just going to be a dream, like having a little person.
Yeah.
And then the art therapy thing, I'm so excited to pursue that fully and see what becomes of it and see the type of impact that I can create through that. It's definitely taking it to the next level. I'm excited for that challenge. Also, more books. I want to write and illustrate more books.
Oh, I love it. Well, I love both dreams. I think we're going to see a lot of really exciting changes in the years to come, and you have a lot of exciting changes on the personal front too. And thank you so much for being on Seek the Joy podcast and sharing so much of yourself and having this conversation with me. And where can everyone find you and your work and get more involved?
Sure. My website is kimothyjoy.com. And I have an online shop with a lot of my prints and artwork and all kinds of stuff on there. And my book information is on the homepage. My book is called That's What She Said, Wise Words of Influential Women. And that is available now. It's out for pre-sale. So you can order that from my website. And then it'll be in bookstores on April 3rd. And then on Instagram, I'm Kimothy Joy. And then Facebook, Kimothy Joy. So yeah.
Perfect.
Okay,
Okay,
can
awesome.
find me.
Amazing. So I'll include everything in the show notes so everyone can find you if they're not already following you and your work. And when I went to the Women's March last year, I remember seeing your stuff everywhere. And so it's been so cool to see just how you've evolved over the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so happy we connected, and I'm so glad to have had this conversation with you. This was amazing. And I feel like I've learned so much about you and your story and your journey, and it's only just beginning to unfold. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sydney. This has been a pleasure, and I'm honored to be on your podcast. And thank you for doing what you're doing, reminding people to seek the joy. Seek their joy. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It's a definite reminder, I think, that we all need. But my hope is one day this kind of idea will be something of the past. It'll just be innate and second nature. So
Absolutely.
So I'm hopeful.